Hello and welcome to Self Startups with Annette Clavely. I'm going to be giving you tips for healthy marketing methods for the modern practitioner. This show is about how to grow your audience from scratch when you're just starting out in the health and wellness business. You might be a new therapist or a practitioner, and you might be newly qualified. You're looking for ways to reach out and build up a new customer base. My name's Annette Clavely and I'll be working in digital marketing for many years. I've worked with all sorts of businesses from tiny micro startups right up to multinational multi-million-dollar businesses, and I would love to help you along on your journey. Listen in for marketing tips and wonderful interviews with other people just like you who are starting out. Thanks for listening. Today I'm going to be talking about whether you need a big audience to start making sales. And then afterwards I'll be speaking with a parenting coach on the importance of communication in a young family. Both the communication between parent and child and parent and partner. But firstly, let's answer the question, do I need a big audience before I can make sales? The short answer to the question is no. The longer term answer is yes. Here's why. To make those first sales, we often rely on the support and generosity of our friends and family. We only need a few sales, and they're happy to support us. The problem is, you can only rely on your mom or your mate to buy your products and services for so long. You can't keep asking the same people to buy in order to keep your business afloat. You need to find a wider circle of people to whom you can make offers. And you want those people to be interested in buying your product or service. Say you're selling a fitness plan or your stress reduction class. You don't want to be reaching out to just some random guy on the street who probably isn't interested in what you're saying. That's when you need to build an audience. So in the longer term, you need an audience of people who are going to buy from you. But do you need a big audience? Not necessarily. Although marketing is a numbers game and there are certain standard conversion rates which are often cited and which can frighten the life out of you when you're first starting out. For example, a 1% conversion rate means you need 100 visitors to your website. And to get those 100 visitors, you need 1,000 impressions of your ad. And so on. But there are also always outliers. There are people who have brilliant sales even with very small audiences. Like the yoga teacher I know who made 3 sales with 10 webinar attendees from an email list of a couple of hundred. So she's got 30% conversion rate from that webinar. Or the baby parenting coach who made 10 sales from her 20 ladies. She's got a free audience group of 30 members. But that's a 30% conversion rate from the workshop and a 75% conversion rate from her free ladies. These audiences were very engaged. They knew they wanted the person's help and they were willing to pay for it. And that makes all the difference. So now let's talk about later on in your business journey. Say you do have a well-engaged audience who are willing to pay for your product or service. You decide you want to scale up and build a much bigger business. Now once again, you're in a position where you can't ask the same people to keep buying more and buy the same product more than once, depending on how many offerings you have. You do get true fans who will buy everything that you sell, but they likely will not make up the majority of your audience. In this case, you do need a big audience to make the sales you want. You need to reach much larger numbers of people in order to fill all the spaces you want in your programs. So the more complex answer to the question of whether you need a big audience to make sales is, it depends. It depends on how many sales you need, on how much the people who follow you want your help and whether they're prepared to pay for it, and how many people are in your audience. It also depends on where you are in your business journey. For more help on building an audience from scratch, visit www.annetteclavely.com. Next, I'm talking to a successful parenting coach who specializes in communication with young families. Johanne Bade helps overwhelmed moms moms and dads to regain calm, confidence and connection. Johanne has been running Johanne Bade Coaching since early 2021. She's currently traveling with her family in Mexico, but she normally lives in the Netherlands. It's an exciting time in her business. Hello!
Hi,
So,
Matt. How are you?
so today I'm going to be talking to Johanne Bade. She's a parenting coach, and she runs a Facebook group called Parenting Made Easier for Badass Mums, which has got to be a topic that lots of us are going to be interested in hearing about. And we're going to be talking today about partner alignment. Now, I know I've got loads of questions about that, so I'm sure that lots of people would have questions about that. So can you tell us a bit more about it? What does it entail?
Partner alignment. So one of the reasons why I talk about partner alignment, this was not a topic I originally started out talking about, but after running my course, I ran a course called Tools for Talking, which was more about communicating with your kids. And at the end of the course, everyone was like, "These are amazing tools. This is so great. How do I get my partner on board?" Right. So,
Yeah.
so this was kind of, it ended up being a bonus I created this for the people who just did my last course. And it's been amazing because partner alignment, and let me give you a definition. So there's tons of definitions of alignment, right? But if you define it as like parts of something that are in position that align with each other, right? Like relative to each other. If you think about like in engineering, cogs in a machine, right? They don't have to be the same. They don't have to be in perfect parallel alignment, but they have to kind of fit together. And that's how I look at alignment. And it's one of those fundamental things that if you're parenting with a partner, or even not parenting with a partner, right? Like you're separated, but you still have to talk to that person who's still, the biological other half of your your children's life. You need to be at least able to talk to each other. And it's a topic that's going to come up and up again and again. And if you're talking about coming back to my Facebook group, right? Like Parenting Made Easier for Badass Moms, because in essence, it's about our life as parents being already difficult enough. Let's make it easier. And one of the easiest ways we can make it easier is by taking the time to align with our partners. And that alignment is oftentimes a buildup of things going wrong over the years, right? So if you're talking, there's no one cause. People ask me like, what's the one cause? Like, why am I not getting along with my partner? There's not any one cause. It comes from sometimes if you have different cultural backgrounds, but also just different ways of being like parented yourself, because that's all we do as parents is we apply, okay, all I know when I have my child is how I was parented. This is how I'm going to do things. But it can also be expectations. Right? Expectations that are not being met of how your partner's treating you or not treating you, but also expectations of yourself. Like, I should be able to do this as a parent, or I should have been able to do this in my career. And so then we're unsatisfied with where we are in our life. And all of that kind of builds up. I like to use the metaphor of, the straw that broke the camel's back, this haystack of little tiny things that build up over the years. And then the explosive conflicts that tend to happen when you're like, oh, I can't take this anymore, things are just going wrong in my relationship, have just been these little things that have been building up. And so you can't say, oh, there's one thing, one magical pill, like a wave of a magic wand that's going to solve it all. So I'm really clear when we're going into partner alignment, it's a step forward, right? We're going to take a step. And we start by, and this is my 3 pillars, and I work with this like in any program or any coaching that I do, awareness, tools, integration, right? So first becoming aware of like, what is actually going on? Like, when was the time I took them through this whole exercise of when did my partner actually do something nice for me? And how did that make me feel? And where do we have the most conflict? And where do I want to actually go to with my partnership, right? Like, and out of that, you can filter all these amazing things that can contribute over the long term towards a more connected, cohesive relationships. Like, if you look at the things that have been done nice that you wrote down, you know what to ask more of from your partner. If you look at how it made you feel, you can fish out your core values from that. If you look at where you want your relationship to go, you can make a concrete goal out of that. Right? So like simple exercise to create awareness just of like, hey, where am I? And it's can be very powerful. And I had some couples in there, right? Like, so I told all the ladies who took my course, and there was a couple that took the course, to bring their partners along. And then really interesting to see that they both give their relationship a rating, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how aligned are they and to see, you know, are they close to each other in where they see the gaps? Are the conflicts from each perspective the same? And a lot of it is just learning how to take a step back and to listen to your partner, to tune in and to understand, like, what is the underlying need? What does my partner need from me right now? Instead of being so quick to, especially if there's a conflict that happens a lot, right? So we tend to go into defense mode. So instead of filling in our mind already our rebuttal, to just kind of listen and filter out what do they need, can make a really huge difference. And then I'll take people through different very simple sentences. I'm super practical in my approach because I have a theoretical education, which drove me nuts, because I went to my supervisor and I was like, okay, I want to help people with my thesis. And he was like, first graduate, then do useful things. And that was like the most annoying answer ever. Because theory, like, there's lots of stuff we learn in theory, right? Like if you're talking about what you do with social media, but also in parenting, there's so much out there. There's so much theory, but where do you start? You know, and to get that the live feedback. And I like to give people exercises like when we're in a session already, so that they can have practice with things. And when we're doing longer courses, they always get weekly assignments, right? They got to go out, they got to practice, they got to come back. Because it's only by practicing that you're going to figure out what works and doesn't work. Because I can give the same tools to everyone, and it's really interesting that I'll always get completely different answers from different people, right? Like what worked the best.
Well, as soon as you said to me that each partner's got to give their own score for, you know, where they are in a relationship, I immediately thought sometimes you must get completely disparate answers from that.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely different ideas of what's wrong with the relationship. And as you say, some of the times that comes from the fact that they are immediately in that defensive mode. It can't be me. It's nothing wrong with me. It must be something wrong with you. Or you are parenting in a different way than I am used to parenting, or the way I was brought up. And that must, you know, trigger the conflict in the first place. So why is alignment with your partner important for parenting?
Yeah, I think you can better ask, why is it not important? I mean, if you're not aligned, your kid is going to constantly get conflicting messages. Not only conflicting messages into what's allowed, what's not allowed, but simply by looking at the partnership, right? Like, we are the living example of the relationships that our kids are actually going to have further on down the road. So if they see parents who say one thing and do another thing, or that are constantly like irritated and making snappy comments or putting each other down, that directly has an impact on what our kids think is okay in a relationship. And we may not think that it's having that big of an effect, but they can read so much from our body language, right? So there's a lot of parents that I'll be talking to that were like, oh, my child, will never have a conflict directly in front of them, but they pick it up. They pick it up because there's that tension, that energy. It's the way of moving around each other. It's the lack of physical contact, for example, between partners. Like if they're not touching each other, like kids pick that up so easily. So alignment with your partner is like, I would actually say the order would be work on yourself, work on your partnership, then work on the relationship with your kids.
Okay.
Because if we're not working on ourselves, then we're also not to the point where we can take responsibility for our own role in how the partnership is not working. Right. So that this is what I'll also say in the session, because some of the partners came, some of them didn't come. Right. And that, you know, that like sometimes people just not invite their partners. And that's already saying in some ways, sadly, I've given up that you'll even show up.
Yes.
But you're not giving the other person a chance to show up either, right? Because there's just been so many of those moments where you've had conflict or you've been disappointed that you've kind of like emotionally already kind of checked out. And that's actually the most dangerous, right? Like that happens way before divorces happen. Like if someone checks out, like, you know, emotionally, it's really hard to repair things there, right? Yeah. So, and it's the what do you call it? I've only got the Dutch word in my mind, right? Like the standpoint has to be, I'm open. If you come from a place of I'm right, it's never going to work. If it's trying to put the other person down, it's not going to work. The main thing that's important here is to come from a place of responsibility. Like I can show up for my kids' relationship, and for my relationship. I have a small naked child walking into my room, like in the middle of things, right? Sweetie, I'm recording the session. Hey, come back later, little licky monster. Bye. This is my life, right? With 3 little creatures running around.
The life of a parent.
Yeah. So I think I was talking about responsibility, right?
Yep. You were about taking responsibility for your own self before you can then start working on your partner relationship.
Yeah.
And if you've already checked out of that equation, then you're past that stage already. You're not really giving them the chance.
Yeah, exactly. But also the responsibility, what I mean is with responsibility is also just to know when I come and I show up to a session like this, I'm saying I'm invested. I'm saying I want to work on my relationship. And we cannot think that just by us going to the session that our partner's behavior is going to change. Like we have this misconception that when we change, miraculously, the person on the other side is going to change as well. And that's really not how it works. The only thing we can do is work on ourselves, our own approach and behavior, and our own response to the situation, right? So we may go out of these sessions and get the exact same response that we've always gotten, except because we've managed to shift something and take responsibility. We're able to handle that differently, which then further down the road creates a different reaction from our partner, because they're going to notice, I'm not being lashed out at, like actually I'm getting an empathetic response. Maybe I then have the room to be more open and sharing as well, right? So it's a gradual process.
Okay. And do you only work with people who are in a partnership?
Generally, yes.
Okay. Because you touched on the single parent earlier, and I wondered whether that you would still be able to work with them, because they would still need to work on themselves and then their relationship with their children, even if they didn't, potentially a future partner.
If someone is motivated and wants to work on that alignment, by all means, I work with them, right? Like in general, the people that I attract to me because of my own situation as well, and who I tend to work with are people who are in partnerships. But I have many friends and people around me, and my own parents, right? They separated when I was 11 years old, right? Okay. So I have had that experience seeing parents who are not aligned at all, right? And as a child growing up with seeing what that does, I definitely have a lot of empathy, and a lot of people who are close to me as well, who are in those separated situations. And some of them, which is really interesting then to see how some people make that work, who really separate and are actually friends with their exes, and some who just have tried no matter what, but they've got someone who's very narcissistic or destructive, and even physically abusive on the other side, right? Or the ones who are just, they tried but they've given up, and that's something that you can't control, right? Like we make as much effort as we can. And it can be just very sad to see the effect that it has on kids to be a part of that process. Yes. And I've also gotten beautiful messages from people who have told me and shared with me, not as a result of my coaching, but who have shared with me how they have managed to get through this, as more just people on social media who reach out to me and be like, I really loved your messaging. And just so this is what I went through in my narcissistic relationship, and I'm still working on it every day, but I've come so far, and that they have their own piece in that. So I know it is possible. But generally speaking, I work with people who have partners. Yeah.
And also you mentioned earlier that sometimes when you're in that separated or in that divorced situation, you sometimes still have to work with that person as a partnership, even if you are no longer together with them. Yeah. Because for the sake of the children, because you've still got to deal with them for the children, because that's the unfortunate thing with separation and divorce, is that you can't just shut the door and say, I don't want to have anything more to do with this person. You have to keep the contact going if you want the children to have a relationship with both parents.
Very true.
So
I'd like to say, though, that alignment, especially with what I teach, and also the communication tools, right? Like I bring it in the context of parenting, or the relationship between partners, or the relationship between, yourself and yourself, or your partners, but it can be so much broader, right? Mm-hmm. Like communication tools that I teach, but also the alignment tools that I teach are they can be related to a work situation or with colleagues or with bosses, or, friends that you have a conflict in. They're more relationship tools on the broader sense of things. So the examples and everything I bring in are definitely like partnership related, and also like what's underneath it and the impact that it can have. But you can translate that to a work environment, right? Like if you've got a colleague, for example, who only talks at you and is only reactive, right? And you have the same conflict with that colleague over and over and over again, your first response is also going to be defensive, and that also creates a rupture in a relationship. And it may be someone who you're on the same team with, who you have to work with, right? Like it's a similar. You can translate it across situations.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can, because communication is key to pretty much every relationship that you have, including yourself. So yeah, I can imagine that would, you would be able to diversify that and then use those skills and take them out and use them to improve your life in all sorts of other areas once you've learned those skills. So tell me, what makes a badass mum? What's the difference? Why the title?
It's feeling like a badass. It's not an external milestone. It's that experiencing that I am a mom who can do whatever the hell I want to, right? Yeah. Like that whatever I set my mind to, I can go for it. And really being that empowered, powerful woman, not saying, because look, I've taken my family on an adventure to the other side of the world, right? And I think that's pretty badass. But for a lot of people, they're like, no, I don't need to travel or something. But it's that feeling that anywhere I want my life to go, I can make it happen. That's what I see as badass.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I write my own rules, basically. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Love that. Okay. So tell me something. How can people work with you? In what ways can people work with you? How can they find you?
Well, there's the two questions, right? How can people work with me and how can people find me? You can find me on Instagram. I'm Johanne Bade Coaching, and the Facebook group you also mentioned is Parenting Made Easier for Badass Moms. And of course, I'm on Facebook. So if you want to reach out and say hi, I always love making new connections and new friends. And I post lots of interesting content and lives also just on my personal profile. And how can people work with me? Well, I'd love you to jump in the group, because there's where I actually share a lot of content. I'm going to be giving a masterclass in December. So it's about fun and connection in your parenting. And then I have a new, very exciting program coming out. Actually, it's a 3-month program, and it's called Connect. So those are the options. If you want to know more, reach out. I'm always happy to have a chat, right? Like no strings attached, just to talk to people, see if I can help. If not, and that this as well. Like I love this because we're connected and we do totally different things. I have a really broad network. So the thing that makes me really happy is that if I can't help someone, I can at least refer them in the right direction. So love meeting new people.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's actually really nice to know, because it means that people can feel safe about just, reaching out and saying, here's where I'm at. Is there something you can help me with or not, basically? Yeah, and I mean, that's the beauty of a Facebook group, isn't it? Because people can spend time in a Facebook group and they can get to know you a little bit better, and they can pick up on, some of your training, and then they can go, yeah, this is something I really need. And then they can take that next step. So it's a really nice way to get to know people over time. And as you say, I'm the same as you, very broad sort of network, working with all sorts of different kinds of people. And for me, I love that variety. I love, getting to know different people and finding out what they do. So
variety is the spice of life, right?
Yeah, exactly. So thank you very much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out. I know you're super busy with lots of children popping through the door and saying, Mom.
Happy to jump on in it. Yeah, that's part of, I was joking on my session. I was like, I think I got interrupted 4 times and there was like drilling in the wall. I was like, this is the hashtag of my life, right? Hashtag mom life. Like, yes. This is just part of it. And that's, anyone who I work with totally understands that it is in that world. So it's, that's part of life. And anyone who presents it differently, I already get that like sense of non-trust just because I'm like, you're not telling me the whole story, because I know these things out of my business.
Yes. Nobody's
Thank you so
perfect.
much for having
No
me.
family life is perfect. Yeah, exactly. I think anybody who's been a parent or is a parent knows exactly where you are. And you know what I mean? That's very reassuring. It's like, she's just like me. I have the same problems. can't go anywhere alone, you know. So
Very
thank you
cool.
very much for joining me today. I really appreciate
Thank you.
it. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You made it to the end of the episode. Thanks for listening to Self Startups Today. Don't forget you can find more episodes at my website www.annetteclubley.com, and you can find information about my free trainings and my programs at /learn. Look forward to seeing you there.